Saudi Arabia is using chemical weapons in Yemen. Oh, are we going to bomb them? Hello, everybody. I'm Graham Elwood. You're watching The Political Vigilante and listening to it. I found this article in veteranstoday.com, which I was going through this website. It's a pretty interesting website. It leans a little right, obviously, because it's a bunch of vets, but it's very critical of regime change wars, and the board and the people are a bunch of vets and people that have worked in the defense industry who are kind of calling it out from what I can see. So as I've said, when I use an article for the show as a reference point, I'm not necessarily 100% endorsing the entire site. Sometimes I'm pointing out the bullshit of the site if it's mainstream media. But this is an interesting article because it shows the hypocrisy of America's foreign policy in the Middle East, right? It's this egregious crime that happened in Syria, and it's alleged. We have people refuting it. It hasn't been proven unequivocally. And Saudi Arabia is using chemical weapons. We use chemical weapons here against our own people in America. So it's pretty insane. And here's a quote. For example, in 2015, Saudi warplanes used toxic gas during strikes on markets and civilian areas in Sadr, leaving a number of people injured and dead. Yemeni locals said that the Saudi warplanes used prohibited weapons in their airstrikes on the Fagatan area of southern Sana'a. So it's like, and where did the Saudis get those weapons? Gee, take a guess. The U.S. and Britain. And as one observer put it, the war in Yemen has succeeded in impoverishing millions, empowering Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and now threatens the broader region with increased instability. It's insane, the hypocrisy. The Saudis are using American weapons. Our military is involved in some of the strikes and stuff in Yemen. And how do we even have the audacity to sit there and take a moral high ground with Syria when we do this? Yemen's the poorest country on the face of the earth, in the entire world, and we're bombing it? We really need to bomb those poor people? They really deserve it? It's insane. And no one's questioning this. No one in the pro-war media is doing anything about it. I'll give you some more statistics. Yemen, already the Middle East's poorest country, now faces a catastrophic famine. 60% of Yemenis are at risk of starvation. More than 17 million people out of the population of 24 million are in need of immediate aid. 17 of 24 million. Immediate aid. 2 years off in indiscriminate bombing by Saudi Arabia and its primary partner, United Arab Emirates, UAE, have laid waste Yemen's infrastructure. Saudi planes, which are dependent on mid-air refueling capabilities provided by the U.S. So we can't sit here and say, well, it's not our war. Yeah, when you're refueling the Saudi planes using American armaments, yes, you are absolutely. If I fuel a getaway car for a bank robbery, guess what? I'm complicit in that felony. And we have no... The Saudi planes that have targeted bridges, roads, factories, hospitals, farms, and even funerals, unexploded cluster munitions used by Saudi Arabia litter some of Yemen's most productive agricultural land, while they will kill and maim for years to come. I've been to Afghanistan, and when I was in Afghanistan in 04, 06, and 07, it was the heaviest mined country on the face of the earth at the time. Maybe that horrible statistic has changed. And it was because of when the Soviets were there. And it was, you drive along a road and you just see it. There'd be no guardrails on this highway. I remember I drove from Bagram Airfield to, which was just outside of Mosul, which was like the capital, the biggest city in the north. Kandahar was the biggest city in the south, which I've also been to. And we drove along the road and you'd just see a little red rock. And I'd say, what's that? And one of the soldiers was like, oh, that means that's a minefield. So that's how the locals know it's a mine. It's not barricaded off, not big danger signs, just a little red rock painted. And if a goat wandered into that minefield, a goat was like supported an entire family, the father would have to send a child out there, because if the father died in the minefield, he couldn't support his family. So literally, like, the middle child would have to go out to try to retrieve the goat and hope the kid didn't get blown up, and the goat. And we're helping create some type of horrifying environment like that in Yemen. More than 10,000 people, mainly civilians, have died in the war. Thousands, possibly tens of thousands more, will die from starvation and disease in the months to come. In his own meeting with bin Salman in Washington, President Trump boasted about $12.5 billion in finalized sales of American weapons to Saudi Arabia. In May 2017, he chose Saudi Arabia for his first foreign trip as president and signed a record $350 billion arms deal. Remember when he had his hand on the orb? And this is why I like some of the writing here. This is what this person wrote. And now those political whores are telling us that they are concerned about alleged chemical weapons in Syria? Do they really think they can fool all of the people all of the time? Even The Guardian agreed that most Syrians back President Assad. In fact, a small minority of Christians even today resent that the United States, France, and the UK were planning to bomb Syria. As a Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Antioch and all of the East has recently declared, we, the patriarchs, John X, Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Antioch, and all of the East, a bunch of Syrian Orthodox Patriarch and all of the East, and Joseph, denounce the brutal aggression that took place this morning against our precious country, Syria, by the USA, France, and the UK. Christians are saying this. Orthodox Christians in Syria are saying this. Here's some other stuff that this website is pointing out. The brutal aggression is a clear violation of the international laws and the UN Charter because it is an unjustified assault on a sovereign country, member of the UN. The allegations of the U.S. and other countries that the Syrian army is using chemical weapons and that Syria is a country that owns and uses this kind of weapon is a claim that isn't justified and unsupported by sufficient and clear evidence. It's just, it goes on and on. It's really amazing what they wrote. These churches wrote all of this stuff. And they said, and it's in the link, I'll put it in the show notes. One of the things they say, these churches say, we call upon all churches in the countries that participated in the aggression to fulfill their Christian duties according to the teachings of the gospel and condemn this aggression and to call their governments to commit to the protection of international peace. If you call yourself a Christian, I'm pretty sure "Thou shalt not kill" is still in the book, right? They didn't amend that. Where are the churches? It's one of the things Chris Hedges talks about in Death of the Liberal Class. The churches have started to side with the war machine. The churches justify this. It's preposterous, and it just shows the hypocrisy. So this site is worth a look, and you know, it's and I'm gonna keep talking about this, and I'm gonna keep trying to find as many sources that I can, but it's hard because the corporate media that owns 95% of all news outlets won't talk about it. So thanks for watching the show. Please subscribe because they've been unsubscribing me. They've been demonetizing me. I could use your help at the Patreon. And I appreciate you supporting the show and wanting to get at the truth and not the bullshit of the pro-war corporate media.